Welcome to the Basics of Virtual Assistants podcast, your go-to destination for all things virtual assistant. I'm your host, Paul, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join us today. Just 4 short years ago, I took the leap into the world of virtual assistants, and let me tell you, I have never looked back. Now it's my turn to help you take the same exciting path. As we explore this world together, I'll be sharing my experiences, insight, and all the valuable lessons I've learned along the way. So get ready to explore the world of virtual assistants, uncover its limitless potential, and let me guide you on your path to becoming a successful virtual assistant. The transformation into a skilled virtual assistant starts right here, right now. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode. I am loving recording these, and I think that every single week sounds better than the last. I watched an interview with Mr. Beast a few years ago, and he was talking about what you need to do as a new YouTuber. But ever since watching this interview, I apply it to everything I do. He said you need to make 100 videos, and all your focus should be on making the next one just 1%. And after I heard this, I started applying it to everything I do. So I want to learn Pilates. I just need to be 1% better every single time I get on the mat. And it's so funny. When I started making TikToks, I just said to myself, okay, like they're going to be terrible when you first start, but you just need to be 1% better every single time you make a video. And I go back and look at those original TikToks, and they are so cringe. But I look at the ones I've made now and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at the improvement you've made. So I feel like this episode is at least 2% better than the first episode that I made. So I feel like I am slowly growing and making these episodes better for you guys. So that's so exciting for me. But anyway, I digress. Let's dive into today's topic, setting boundaries. This topic is a difficult one to talk about because I feel like boundaries can be a really tough topic to talk about in anyone's life, whether that be personal, business. You know, boundaries are difficult to put in place no matter what you're trying to do with them. But when you're doing something new, it can be even harder to set boundaries. I know it affects every single virtual assistant when they are first starting their business. That's why I have created this episode, because I think it is something that we really need to discuss as virtual assistants. Setting boundaries as a virtual assistant, whether new or seasoned, can be challenging. We all want to deliver our absolute best, make a name for ourselves, and of course, earn an income. However, in the pursuit of these goals, we often let clients push our boundaries or neglect them altogether. And trust me, that's not a sustainable way to start or run your business long term. Not having boundaries can lead to burnout or a growing dissatisfaction with your work, which ironically is often why many of us become virtual assistants in the first place. It erodes the joy of doing what you love on your terms. So, what can we do? How do we set boundaries from the start or readjust and implement them? Firstly, it's crucial to be clear about the boundaries you want to set. It's a highly personal decision. For example, while it's easy for me to say I won't work weekends, it might not be the case for someone juggling virtual assistant work around their 9 to 5. So make a clear list of your boundaries. For me, I don't work weekends, and my work hours during the week are strictly between 8 and 3:30. I also make the exception of if I'm working outside these hours, then it needs to be something that is discussed prior to the time that I'm working. For example, my customers usually launch at night because that is the most effective time for them in their business. And I want to be there to support them. It is so important to me. And so just set that up in advance. They know in advance that they're launching, they let me know. And that way I can work it around my family. I can make sure someone is here to help me with my kids if my husband is away. It is really about what works best for you. And a client said to me, they need me online tonight to do a launch. There is no way I could make that work with my kids. But if you give me 2 weeks' notice, absolutely, I can do that for you. And that is why setting boundaries is so important, because it really needs to suit you and your business. Boundaries are not just about work hours. You need to consider when and how you communicate with clients. Are you using email, Slack, or Voxer? What's your response time? Is it within 24 hours? Is it within an hour? Is it not over the weekend? These are all things you really need to consider. For example, I have one client with whom We communicate as needed throughout the week, but Sunday's a family day and we avoid work-related communication. Also, think about whether you're sharing your personal number with these clients. A lot of virtual assistants do not share their number with their clients, and that is completely understandable. I have one client that I speak with daily on the phone, as that's what suits our needs within her business. It's the easiest way for us to communicate about how things need to be done or touch base when something comes up that we haven't discussed prior. Other hand, I have clients who I only communicate with through Slack and email. There are numerous factors to consider when defining what you do and don't want to do in your business. Whether you're just starting out or treating this as a side gig, it's crucial to consider all of these elements and get them in place as soon as possible. When I began, I didn't have these boundaries and it nearly led to burnout. It affected not only me, but also my family because I felt like I constantly needed to be on the go and ready. And I would put things off to go and do things for my clients. I would push back cooking dinner because a client texted me and said something needed to be done. I would push back other important things for our household to do things for clients. And I learned really quickly that this was one, not sustainable long term, and two, was not what I wanted when I started this business. For those starting out, incorporate these boundaries into your pricing guide or your initial client communication. Include a simple section outlining your work hours and specifying any work outside of these hours needs to be requested in advance, or whatever boundaries you're setting. You just want to have them really clear in your communication to your clients so that you can refer back in our initial communication or in this document. It states that these are my boundaries or these are the hours I'm working, this is how I communicate, etc. And it just makes it easier then to go back and say, actually, I did communicate that with you. Like I was very clear about it. I'm sorry you missed it, but it was communicated. While you could make them strict and add them into your contract, I don't recommend it. Working as a VA often means that you need to be flexible depending on your client's requirements. It doesn't mean that you need to give in every time, but there is always times where something happens out of client's control or, like they've been able to give you warning, that sort of thing. So I don't recommend adding it into your contract, but each to their own. Now, if you already have clients and need to set boundaries that are being pushed, my biggest piece of advice is to be honest with them. Approach the conversation openly, avoiding blame. They likely don't realize that they're overstepping. Remember, they've all been where we are, starting their business from scratch and at some point putting boundaries in place. An open conversation about the changes you're making going forward is the most productive way to establish these boundaries. Admittedly, not everyone will take this well. Some people won't want you to have boundaries. The clients you want to work with long term will understand. I know it's challenging to consider losing a client, especially when you're starting out. However, if you cling to clients unwilling to respect your boundaries, you won't have space for those who genuinely want to see you thrive. The type of clients you want to work with long term. Remember, setting boundaries isn't just about protecting your time, it's about preserving the joy and passion in what you do. It is so important to put boundaries in place in your business. I cannot stress that enough. If I had not put boundaries in place with my clients when I first started, I absolutely would have quit long before now. So if you are struggling to put boundaries in place, it's normal and that is okay. Take some time, think about what boundaries you really want to put in place, and then start slowly implementing them. Maybe you don't put all the boundaries in place at once. Maybe you say, okay, I'm going to start by I'm not working nights. And so you say to your client, I will work up until this time of the afternoon and then I'm not working after that. And then maybe you bring in weekends and then maybe you do whatever other boundaries you have. It doesn't have to happen all at once. Brings us to the end of this episode. If you have any questions or need any guidance on setting boundaries, my Instagram DMs are always open and you can come and join our Facebook group, The Basics for Virtual Assistants. You can find links to these in the descriptions. Now, a super quick request from me. If you liked this episode, I would love it if you could leave a review. This will help other virtual assistants find the podcast as well. Now, don't forget to tune in next week because I have a very special guest coming to join us. I'm so excited for her to be on the podcast. One of my amazing clients is going to be coming on to share her perspective of hiring and working with virtual assistants as a business owner. And you are not going to miss what she wants to share. So I cannot wait to see you back here next week.